Welcome back to Cradle to Grave Algebra. My name is Mark Gingras, and today we're going to talk about the coordinate system and some properties of it. It's usually best to just play by example, learn by example, so let's just dive right into it. What I have here is two arbitrary lines. Remember, we've talked about the real number line before, and it was just a horizontal line that had every real number on it, and you can basically indicate where on that line you were talking about. If I was talking about the number 5, you can go to the right 5, and there's a point on that line at 5. Well, this is just taking it up a notch to a two-dimensional coordinate system, or the Cartesian coordinate system. What I'm going to show you today is just a few examples and some terminology to get used to this. You've probably even seen this before. So what I drew here was just a horizontal line and a vertical line. Now when we're creating a coordinate system, these lines have a specific name to them. They're namely called axes. So this is a horizontal axis, and I'm saying axis, A-X-I-S. So this is an axis, and this is a vertical axis. They're two axes, right? One's vertical, one's horizontal. I'm going to get rid of these lines here, but that's what they're called. Now, we typically go for infinity in every direction, but we can't possibly draw that, so let's just put a little arrow on each one. And you're wondering, what are we doing here? Why? What's the point of this? Well, we can map things. Like if this was your bedroom layout, looking at the floor, where can you put a desk? Well, I can put a desk right here, but how do I tell you where that desk is, right? So that's basically why this is useful. It's one of many, many, many reasons why this is useful. Now, these axes are typically labeled with letters, and we're going to label this horizontal axis with the letter X, so we can refer to the horizontal part of this at all times with the letter X, and the vertical we're going to label as a Y. Those are arbitrary. Now, most of your books, most of your conversations will deal with X and Y axes, but they don't have to be. It could be V and W, it could be T and R, it could be anything. But typically you'll see X and Y. It's just a way to denote, hey, are we talking about this horizontal direction or this vertical direction? X or Y, okay? Those are called the axis titles. And now we have the labeling of like the units on the axis. So typically your 0 point on the axis is where they cross, this intersection here. So right here in red, I'm going to put it right here. That's where your X value is 0 and your Y value is 0. And you're like, okay, what are you talking about? Let's just draw out some more of this. So to the right of 0 on the real number line, to the right, think about the real number line, to the right is a positive number. So positive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they go on and on and on. We can label a couple of these just to get the idea. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, so or 5, we'll go up to 5. So we go up to 5 in the positive direction. Now on your real number line, you also can go the other direction. So on the left-hand side, you have negatives. Same thing with the Y values. Going up is positive and going down is negative. And now it's not always that case though. It's just the way that we label it is how it reflects. But typically you'll see the upward numbers be positive. So we're just going to label this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll put 5 right there. Now the negative numbers on the real number line to the left of the 0 is typically negative, right? Well, they're all negative. So negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. I'll just label that. So below the x-axis, below it, is negative numbers as well. Negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And of course, they go on forever. So now, let's just jump right into it. If I asked you, hey, describe to me where you want your desk. If this is your room, in fact, let's make a room here. I'm going to make the room green, and I'm going to put a square around it, and I'm going to say, hey, this is your bedroom right here. Okay, so if that's your bedroom, you tell me where you want your bed. Where do you want the corner of your bed to start? Well, I want my bed to be, and I'll just pick a different color here. Let's go with red. I want my bed to be starting right here, right? And I'm just putting a dot there. That's the corner of my bed, right? So that's where I want it. Of course, I'll draw it out, but you could tell the contractors or the movers, hey, put the bed right there. How do I describe that to someone? I could say, hey, why don't you start at the 0 position of my coordinate system, move to the right or go in the positive direction of the x-axis that's labeled, go to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units. And then on my y-axis, go up. So we go up. How many units? Well, I'm not sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4 units. So if I draw that out, it would land right here on the x-axis. And if I keep going this way, it would land right there on the y-axis. Remember, the axis is y-axis, x-axis. So I can tell somebody, I can describe to them, go to the right 7 units, so that's a 7, and go up 4 units. And that's how you describe it. Now there's a way to write this down, and the way to write that down is what we call an ordered pair. An ordered pair is just a way to denote, hey, I'm finding a point on this coordinate system. And I'm just going to draw it out here. It's just a parenthesis, and then the x value would go in the first part of the parenthesis, comma, and then the y value. Again, x and y were arbitrarily made, so we know that this x corresponds to this x-axis, which happens to be a horizontal axis. This y corresponds to this y-axis, right, which is the vertical axis. So they correspond to it. So that's how you would denote a position. So instead of x and y, though, we know that this is an x and y coordinate system. We could plug in those numbers. Hey, put the bed at position. So this x is a position. It's a placeholder. It's a parameter. It's a place that you know you could put values that go to the right or left. And that value is 7. And same thing with the y. It's a placeholder, a parameter. It's a position, location placeholder. In the y value, I said I wanted to go up 4. So 7, 4 on this coordinate system would actually be this point right here. In fact, I can label it here, 7, 4. Or that might get cumbersome, so let's, instead of doing that, why don't we just set 7, 4 equal to a position. We'll call it P, and I'll put a little 1 here to say, hey, position 1. I want position 1 to be at 7, 4. So I can label this little position here as P1. Hope that makes sense. Let's do another example. I want my lamp, or I want my lamp at, if I just told you, hey, I want my lamp at -3, 6. Where would that be? Well, we know that we're talking about this coordinate system that has an x and a y coordinate, and the x and y is in this layout where x is first and y. So we know -3 is backwards, like to the left, -1, -2, -3. Always start with the x first, because that's the way that I'm laid it out. I defined it right here. X is first, then y, right? So when I give you something like this, the -3 corresponds to that x, and the 6 corresponds to the y. So -3, -1, -2, -3, and then up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that point would be somewhere right here, and let's label this one P2. Now these could be P, Q, R, it doesn't matter. Oh, you can't quite see that P, so let me write it over here a little bit. P2. Okay, now you can see it. So P2 is right here. P2. That's another poor P. P2, nice and big for you. So that's a position that corresponds to 6. This is supposed to be, straight lines right here. Just pretend that I could do that. And -3, so that would go down to this point right here. Hope you get the idea. I think you do. So that's how you would do it. You can have negatives and negatives. So if I asked you what this point right here was, you would just count backwards from the x-axis. -1, -2, -3, -4. We'll just call it -4. So, okay, once we do that, we go down, and we go to the right, and we go down -1, -2, -3. Well, so again, if these were straight lines and I had a perfect device to use, then it would work. So how would I write that? Remember, start with the x value first. So -1, -2, -3, -4. So that point would be -4, comma, and don't forget the parenthesis. And then we said it was -3 on the y-axis. And that's your coordinate system. These are ordered pairs because it's pairs of numbers. You can even have triples and more, things like that. But later on, we'll talk about that. But this is a messy coordinate system. I hope that you kind of got the idea of how this works and the terminology behind it. Again, if you find these helpful, go ahead and like and share, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.